Lonely woman adopted a black boy, and 20 years later, she would uncover his shocking secret. Margaret Hayes had always been a quiet woman. Her neighbors knew her as the one who fed stray cats, brought man-tarts to bake sales, and always kept her garden tidy. Even after her husband's passing, she lived in a two-bedroom cottage near the town's edge, surrounded by books and memories. The silence never used to bother her, until the day it did. It began one October morning, when she had spent most of her breakfast gazing across from her, as if waiting for someone to arrive. But no one ever did. So she got up, placed her plate in the sink, and left the house with no plan. Only her coat, keys, and a weight inside. That's how she ended up at the SETI orphanage. She hadn't been there in years, not since volunteering one Christmas. But as she crossed the gates, something pulled her forward like a tide. Perhaps fate. Inside the rooms, the buzz of noise filled the air. Children laughing, babies crying, volunteers bustling. Then she saw him, a baby boy sitting silently in a bassinet near the window, eyes wide open, staring at nothing and everything all at once. He wore a red hoodie that didn't quite fit, his skin dark, beautiful, and flawless. But what truly stopped Margaret cold were his eyes, icy blue, clear as glass. She stepped closer, noticing a tiny bracelet wrapped around his wrist, made of cloth and buttons, with two faded letters stitched onto the fabric. K.I. She asked one of the staff, "What's his name?" "No name on record. Left here about 2 weeks ago. No one's come looking. Probably another border case. Happens more than it should. Has anyone considered adoption?" The woman shook her head. "He doesn't have papers. The system's still figuring it out." Margaret stared at the baby again. He wasn't crying, just watching. "I'll take him," she whispered. It took months of navigating bureaucracy, court filings, and special permissions, but Margaret didn't waver. She named him Cairo. When he finally arrived home, she held him against her chest, feeling something inside her shift. Cairo grew quickly, rarely cried, rarely got sick, and showed signs of unusual intelligence. Before he could even walk, by 2 he could mimic any sound. By 5 he was teaching himself to read maps and labels. By 7 he was decoding puzzle boxes and repairing Margaret's broken toaster, as if he had done it before. But there was more. Cairo sometimes spoke words in his sleep, words Margaret couldn't place, rhythmic, melodic syllables. Not gibberish, but a language. One morning he woke whispering the same phrase repeatedly, "Kafaro ama, Kafaro ama." She recorded it and played it for a local language professor. He said it resembled fragments of an old dialect from a nearly extinct African coastal tribe. Margaret was stunned. When she asked Cairo about it, he simply said, "I don't know how I know. It's just in me." She never pressed further. As Cairo grew older, he began asking real questions. "Where do I come from? Why are my eyes different? What does my bracelet mean?" Margaret told him everything she knew, which wasn't much, but she promised, "If you want to search, I'll help you." He nodded. Instead of searching right away, Cairo studied books on identity, cryptography, African history, and computer science. By 17, he was building secure databases for nonprofits, and he never took off that bracelet. He wore it like armor. One winter, Cairo discovered something remarkable while scanning archived immigration files. A symbol on a document from 2002 caught his attention, a seal almost invisible on the page. It matched the faintly etched symbol on his bracelet's plastic bead. He dug deeper. The seal belonged to a long-shut organization called the Kudura Initiative, linked to a former political figure from West Africa named Vantara, exiled after a coup. The leader's name was Kamari Ayatu. Cairo's breath caught as he ran facial recognition software on old government photos, uploading a childhood picture of himself alongside one of Kamari Ayatu. The results: a 92% genetic match. Kamari had disappeared without a trace 2 decades ago, rumored dead, but before his downfall, he had a baby son, hidden amid the chaos of regime collapse. The infant was never found until now. Cairo sat back from the screen, the bracelet heavy on his wrist. Who had left him at that orphanage, and why? That night over dinner, Margaret noticed his distance. He was quiet, staring at his food. "Are you all right, love?" Cairo met her eyes. I found something. Something big. Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. How big? Cairo lifted the bracelet. This isn't just a memory, it's something else. Margaret leaned back, heart pounding. She didn't yet know what Cairo had uncovered, but she could feel it. Her boy, her curious boy, was on the edge of something extraordinary. That night, Cairo couldn't sleep. His mind raced. Bracelet, seal, the match to Kamari Ayatu. All pointed to one undeniable truth. His entire life had been built on secrets. He wasn't just an orphan. He was the son of a man who once wielded power in a country torn by corruption and rebellion. Now, 20 years later, history was knocking. He thought about Margaret, how she loved him for who he was, not for his legacy. She never cared where he came from, but now he couldn't ignore it. He had to know everything. The next morning, he booked a private consultation with an international records investigator, with Margaret's blessing. They flew to a secure archive in Geneva, where the remnants of the Kadura initiative had been stored after its collapse. The bracelet turned out to contain more than a keepsake. Inside, beneath the soft plastic, was a microchip. Cairo stared at the scanner screen. Can you crack it? He asked. The tech expert smirked. Most of the world couldn't, but you wrote half the tools we're using. It took 2 hours, but when the encryption broke, a file opened. Dozens of scanned birth certificates, personal logs, handwritten escape routes, coded letters. On video, grainy, time-stamped 2003. A man appeared, dressed sharply, fierce eyes. Kamari Ayatu. He held a baby. If this message is ever found, he said, it means the initiative failed. They'll say I was corrupt or crazy, but I was trying to save my country from vultures. This child, he may never know me, but he is my legacy. Cairo sat frozen. The following days blurred together. The file contained proof of offshore humanitarian funds, money Kamari had hidden away from governments and warlords, money meant to rebuild his nation. The account was tied to biometric DNA, linked to his son. Cairo was the first he called. I don't know what to do with this, he admitted. It's too much. Margaret's voice was gentle. You were never too much for me. Perhaps your father trusted you because he believed you'd do better than he did. Cairo looked at the glowing bracelet in his hand. He had been chosen. But Cairo didn't seek power. He quietly launched a global nonprofit under a new name, using the hidden funds. He built clean water systems, schools, and tech centers, starting in Vantara and expanding. Journalists speculated about the mysterious donor. His face was never shown. But whispers of Project Cairo spread far and wide. The Kadura initiative couldn't stop him. One afternoon, Cairo returned home and found Margaret sitting on the porch, sipping tea and smiling. I saw a headline today, she said. Anonymous benefactor rebuilds abandoned hospital in Cairo province. He chuckled. I like that tone. She leaned forward. But you're still my boy, right? Cairo's voice softened. Always. He sat beside her, resting his head on her shoulder. The breeze rustled the trees. Somewhere down the block, kids played and laughed. In that moment, the boy with the blue eyes, the one who whispered in his sleep and fixed broken toasters, knew exactly who he was. Not just the son of a fallen leader, not just a name stitched into an old bracelet, but a man raised by love, shaped by truth, entrusted with a legacy to heal. And finally, after 20 years, he was no longer searching. He was home. Later that year, Cairo was invited to speak anonymously at a UN-sponsored youth summit. They wanted to know how a single foundation had quietly impacted over 400,000 lives in less than 2 years. Dressed in a plain gray suit behind a frosted panel, he said, I was raised by someone who taught me that love doesn't need to ask where you come from to decide your worth. I am here because someone saw me, not as a mistake, but as a beginning. Applause echoed backstage. An UN official approached him. If you ever want to meet with Vantara's new government, they'd welcome you. You have influence. You could even run for office. Cairo shook his head gently. That's not why I came back. I'm not a kingmaker. I'm a gardener. I'm here to plant something better. That night, he flew home to Margaret, who was knitting a sweater for the neighbor's baby. She looked up. "You're amazing," she said, having watched the speech online. "You watched?" Surprised? She nodded. "Always." They sat together by the fireplace, sipping hot cocoa as the world outside grew quiet. Nothing more was needed. But in Cairo's heart, the fire that once burned for answers now burned for others, those searching for hope, and he would help them find what he had found: roots, peace, and a new beginning. Somewhere across the sea, a tree planted in his name now blooms every spring. He smiled. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. Let us know in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.